Peace.
That was Alison Holt. I'm joined by Patel, who's Legal and Policy Director from the Joint Council for the Welfare of Immigrants. Good evening. Thank you for coming in. What do you make of what's been exposed here?
Well, I mean, it's shocking, but it's unfortunately not unexpected. There have been, many issues with detention centres in general and those run by private companies. I think the most important thing to remember is that while G4S has had many scandals attached to it, and it's unclear why the government keeps putting responsibility in the hands of an organisation that has proven time and time again to be unable to fulfil those duties with humanity. It is very much an issue for the government to reflect on its use and its continued use in the face of its own independent review, in the face of cross-party groups of MPs who have all said that the use of immigration detention in the UK is ineffective, it's expensive, it's inhumane, and needs to be reduced drastically.
Give us a sense of who is typically inside a place like Brook House. What's the mix of people?
Well, the majority of people who are in immigration detention have at some point made an asylum claim, but it can be people with any kind of immigration status who've either made claims in the past for status, have come into the country legally and then lost their status, or are seeking to enter the country and have been placed in detention pending decision on whether or not they can do that. The important thing to remember is that these are people who you don't go into immigration detention because you've been convicted of any sort of crime. It is simply something that the Home Office uses as a matter of administrative convenience. And what the Home Office is supposed to do is to only detain people whom it has a realistic and reasonable prospect of removing from the country in a reasonable period of time, and that doesn't happen.
You talk about why, as you see it, the Home Office does what it does, but if these people, whether you like it or not, are part of a process, they therefore have to be somewhere while that process is conducted, don't they?
Yes, and many people manage that process perfectly well, not in immigration detention. And many other countries, we're the only country in the EU to have indefinite immigration detention, where you can be detained for any period of time and you won't necessarily know when you'll be let out.
So you want that to change as a result of this?
Well, we've and many other organisations have been calling for a time limit on the length of detention that can be allowed, because, as I said, the obligation on the Home Office is to only detain those who can be removed within a reasonable period of time. There are people who've been in there for 4 years. That's not reasonable by any standards. And the other thing is that there are models out there for countries that use immigration detention far, far less than we do. We use it far more than most, and they have, in fact, in some cases, more cooperation from the people who are told that their application is refused. They have a greater success rate at people voluntarily leaving the country than we do.
OK, we must leave it there, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Patel there.